Hi, welcome to the Defence series. I'm Joe Field. I lead our cleared architecture and infrastructure desk here at IO Associates. This is a new episode of the Defence series where I'm joined by Stuart Warner, who is the head of systems engineering at Espanaro.
Hi there.
So, talk us through it. Who are you? What's your role?
Yeah, so Stuart Warner, head of systems engineering at Espanaro. Espanaro are a company, I guess, that offer engineering services out into defence, but also other industries. I guess my background is I studied physics at the University of Surrey. I did a graduate scheme at MBDA, who built missile systems, where I was a guidance, control, and navigation engineer. And then, having done the graduate scheme there, I moved to BAE, where I worked for the last 10 years in their submarine combat systems department as a number of different roles, but primarily around architecture and systems engineering. Last sort of 3 or 4 years I was there, I guess I was more in engineering management, working and managing teams of people sort of doing work in systems engineering before making the move over to Espanaro in the last few months.
Nice. And obviously, bit of a change of pace and environment from a massive household brand name in BAE over to Espanaro, who are obviously a bit of a new kid on the block. Why Espanaro, and what's your role involved in?
Yeah, so I guess the role first, there's like the inwards facing, the outwards facing part with a role like this. So like the outwards facing bit, I guess, is they offer engineering services. One of those areas is systems engineering. So a lot of my job is to go and work with our clients to kind of understand what it is that they need. We try and focus more, I guess, on work package delivery over sort of consultancy. So it's more, what do you need doing? What do you need help getting done? And trying to, I guess, help facilitate getting that work done, either by providing resources to go and work within an organisation, or than just offloading the work to us. We deliver it as a team within Espanaro and provide it back to them. So like I said, a lot of the job is going and working with clients to understand what they need and then trying to basically facilitate that happening. I guess the inwards facing bit is, as head of the function, is to ensure that we've got the right processes in place. We're growing our capability at all times. Yeah. But Espanaro also does a lot of like product development, and some of those products are quite complex. So actually there's a need for systems engineering to be involved in that. So I guess part of the role is, from an inwards facing point of view, is to make sure we're actually applying it right within our own product development.
It's really really interesting. And obviously, from your background and your degree, what sort of made you move into the sort of world of systems and systems engineering?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. So it's not something that you can necessarily go and study directly as a degree. And I guess I kind of got into it, and actually been finding a load of people who have got physics backgrounds are starting to find their way into the industry. And it's it's not that uncommon. It's because it's kind of allows you to take this sort of holistic view of what everything is and how it works, and sort of look at things in a way that people that have kind of studied those kind of degrees tend to have the mindset for. So I sort of find that element of the job quite interesting. I mean, why do we do it? I guess, and in an industry like defence, it's just a really important role. Is like we're delivering often like really big systems or really complex systems, and there's a lot of moving parts in that, and someone really poetically once put it to me as it's trying to bring order to chaos. Yeah. Because there's so many bits to try and understand, and when you're trying to then break something like that down and engineer it, it's trying to keep that focus on how is it actually all going to fit together, and what does it need to do, and what is it going to do, and actually what are the things we don't want it to do that it might do, that and trying to understand that. But increasingly, when you look at sort of what's going on in the industry, there's always an ever greater push for things to be more safe, like more secure. You've got the driver to continuously be putting new capability out, doing things quicker and cheaper. So there's like huge amounts of push all on like pulling these projects in loads of different directions, and someone has to kind of try and grapple all of that and keep it on the straight and narrow and make sure sort of projects make it from beginning to end. Yeah. And you get what you want out of them when you want it, and everyone's sort of happy with the result.
Yeah, and sort of touched on it there, but what is it, and why is it that your role and more generally sort of systems engineering is so important within, I guess, defence in particular, because I know that's your background, and
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at what's going on, things are only getting, technology is driving us only ever more down a route where things are more complicated, they're more interconnected, like there's a big push these days for like exploitation of data, and all of that comes with a need to try and have like a simple enough understanding that you've got, assurance that you're building the right thing.
Yeah.
And it's been built in the right way. So it's only ever becoming a more important, I guess, role within an engineering project to get this right, and to try and ensure that you stay on the right side of what we sort of call the technical debt, that you actually can sustainably grow and build these capabilities as they get more and more complicated.
Yeah, for sure. And I think certainly something that we're seeing a lot of at the moment, certainly more in the kind of IT and IT infrastructure spaces. You were kind of touching on it there, but the ever growing importance of sort of cybersecurity,
Yeah.
and what's the impact that that's having in your sort of system space? Is it similar?
Yeah, so I mean, the need for systems in defence to be secure is not a new thing. Obviously, in recent years, there's an increasing impetus on it. Literally in the last week, we've had obviously this thing about CrowdStrike.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of focus on it, but some of the fundamentals haven't changed. Some of the things you have to be cognizant of in designing a system, trying to deliver it, it is evolving, but it's certainly getting more focus. It's some of the projects we've seen, it's definitely been a key driver for change or new product development. So it's something that influences a lot of work we do. But I sometimes sort of think, ultimately at the end of the day, the exam question hasn't changed. It's deliver me a system that's going to be secure.
Yeah, of course, and that's something, mentioning it there, the CrowdStrike kind of saga that happened, but almost the worst nightmare for defence, and luckily it wasn't impacted. But I guess a big part of what you do is making sure that something like that doesn't happen.
Yeah, Espanaro is kind of, the motto is secure by design. So we offer services, particularly in our software development side, that are there to try and aid helping with, I guess, sort of delivering secure systems. I think you're going to have Dan on at some point, our CEO, to talk more through some of the product side of it, and some of the work we've done in that space.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's kind of the flavour of the month at the moment is that cybersecurity piece in defence, because I think there's a sort of growing and real threat of not just sort of physical warfare, but actually cyber warfare, and obviously we've seen various breaches and attacks within the sort of government space anyway. So that's really interesting. In terms of sort of your role and your experience, obviously being in the sort of systems world for quite a while now, and in management for a little while, what have you sort of seen as being some of the biggest challenges that you faced?
So I guess most recently I've kind of been exposed to some of the realities of the skill shortage. We work in an industry where there is a skill shortage for people with STEM skills, in systems engineering in particular. In my field, we've seen that finding those skills and sort of trying to retain them within an organization is quite challenging. I guess the interesting perspective I've kind of probably had that might be a little bit different is, part of what I was doing while we were at BAE was looking at how you can use early careers as a way of, I guess, trying to mitigate part of that challenge. You've got an entire rich source of people that's continuously coming through from university and from higher education, and how can you organically grow a capability quicker and at scale to try and manage ultimately what resource shortfall that organizations have. It comes with a lot of interesting challenges doing that, particularly trying to do it at scale. But there's some really interesting and, I guess, like really good things that come out of that as well, like from an experience point of view.
And I guess from a management perspective, the challenges of someone early careers and upskilling them and managing them is very different to managing someone that is experienced and has the skill set, but actually needs managing in a different way.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess sort of having worked around that, people in that demographic now for a while, it's there's a lot of things that are sort of very obvious, like it's normally people's first job in a professional environment, so there's a whole load of things that come with that around just learning how to work in a professional organization as opposed to doing it at university. That's different, like the soft skills and the basic business skills of like presenting and things like that don't necessarily get matured in the same way at university. But you've got a whole load of technical skills and experiences you're trying to when you're trying to sort of rapidly upskill people. There's a lot of years of experience that you kind of can't always make up for, and you're trying to recreate really quickly. It's difficult. One of the things that makes it harder for companies trying to go down this route is actually people in coming out of university now are more mobile, and they're more willing to move for work. Yeah. So actually there's a retention problem. You can put a load of investment into trying to organically grow a capability, and then actually the people up and leave if they're not satisfied or they think the grass is greener elsewhere. Yeah. So it's not just about trying to grow it, but also retain it. Yeah. So it comes with a lot of challenges. And as you say, people aren't necessarily hired into a business to become sort of leaders in their field to then be teachers. They're there because they've become an engineer and they do engineering. They don't necessarily want to be teachers. They don't necessarily want to be a mentor to someone. It might be that they want to, but they don't necessarily have the skills for it either. So it can be challenging to create the right environment to do that. But on the flip side, if you can get it right, you've got access to a whole pool of people that, in my experience, are always incredibly intelligent, really highly motivated. And, for a lot of them, they're coming out of university now into a world where like it's harder to get on the housing ladder. They want to take every opportunity they can at work. So they're really motivated to take opportunities on. And they come with, all the things about like fresh ideas, but also actually, they don't come necessarily like in a company where you might be wanting to do something different, or you might want to introduce new ways of working. You've got access to an entire bunch of people that are willing to do things differently because they've not done it before, and you can, and they're willing to learn. So it does create a lot of opportunities for companies.
And I guess on that as well, for you as a manager, although like you say, they might not have all the technical skills that if you went and hired someone that's got 3-4 years experience, but actually training them and molding them into the way of working that you as a business want, it's a lot easier because like you say, they come in as a clean slate. They're not coming in with, a prerequisite about how to do the job.
Yeah, and that's it. And I guess, we felt ultimately we had quite a good spin on how to do this as we say, like, it's not always that easy to, when you're trying to do it at scale, find enough people willing to make part of their job doing that and doing it in a consistent way. The way we tried to manage it was actually to try and centralize a lot of it. So instead of having traditionally what are lots of early careers people sort of dispersed into a workforce as individuals, we tried to keep as many of them in one place as possible, in one central team, and then overcome, I guess, the sort of experience gap by augmenting it with those individuals that have the experience but are also the ones that want to work in that way. They are actually good at working with people and being mentors and actually willing to kind of have their hand off the pen but be there guiding the pen. And then what we do with that is then actually allow the technical people that have like rich deep knowledge to actually come and just drive, almost do the drive-by of imparting the wisdom and then going back to their day job, and they're not necessarily then having to be there day in, day out to actually deliver sort of technical expertise onto someone. They can get on with their day job as well. But you're getting these people are then getting access to a environment they're more comfortable working in with a load of other people that are going through the same journey as them, but they're still getting all the development and I guess sort of imparting of knowledge that you need to get to grow the capability.
Yeah. And I guess, the early careers people at the moment, the people that are coming out of university, in the last couple of years have gone through university during COVID as well. So, they're clearly going to be, if they've come out of university with a good degree through COVID, they've obviously got another set of skills there as well in resilience.
Yeah. And it's really interesting actually to see, because they're kind of used to a lot of the things that the rest of us had to adjust to around things like remote working. They've done some of that as part of university, so it's not unusual to them. Actually, one of the things that I had that was like one of these really interesting sort of psychological things was, it's the art of being in a meeting, in an actual physical meeting that they've not had. And we realize we've had people that, have done sort of 1 or 2 years in the company that then have never actually had to do the thing of sitting in a meeting room with a huge group of people in a really hot, sweaty environment, some really sort of arduous workshop which you've got to get through. And actually the practicalities of working with other people in person, because you can't just sort of switch off a little bit and sit back, and it's all at the end of the phone, so everything's a bit more cordial, And we sort of got to the point where we actually had to start bringing people to meetings, even if they weren't really involved in the work, just so they were getting that experience of sitting there and understanding that actually is quite a crucial thing to be able to do.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? It's some of the skills that they come in that are really useful, but actually, like you said there's some things that they've just not had to do, whether that be in a university environment, but also in in a work environment as well. Especially at the moment with that phase return happening now, especially in your sort of world where there's need for a lot of conversations to happen on site because it's sensitive stuff that can't be discussed over Teams, and actually people need to, like you say, need to be able to hold themselves in front of a room of people and actually at least be able to look like they're paying attention and are in the room with them, and not, like you say, on Teams where you can just kind of zone out.
Yeah, exactly. So there's an art to it, and I think it's something that is probably diminishing as a result of how much most of us can work from home now.
And how would you say that what you've been through with BAE in terms of that big push in the early careers development, how would you say that's kind of changed your outlook on how you will do things going forward?
I think what I learned from it actually is, if you create an environment in which people feel comfortable that they can actually get on and do things, and that was ultimately what we were trying to do, to create this sort of blanket effectively for people to come in and go, look, you're gonna have, you've got to do the job and learn to do the job while doing it. Actually taking that and trying to create that kind of environment where it's okay for you to get things wrong. It's all about what you learn from it and what you do the next time. Actually, how powerful that can be in organisations sometimes where there is a fear of doing things wrong and trying things differently. Actually, how powerful that can be in terms of creating momentum behind getting a lot of things done quite quickly.
Yeah, definitely. And sort of it presents a different set of challenges. Obviously, you kind of touched on some of them earlier on, but what was your sort of response, and how would you sort of overcome the challenges of bringing in someone from early careers compared to bringing in someone with 2-3 years experience that has actually seen the working world?
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of just touched on it a little bit, but as I said, all we try to do is just you create an environment in which people feel comfortable to be able to say, I'm doing this for the first time. I don't necessarily know what I'm doing, and they've got that support framework of people around them that like, look, this is how you do it, and trying to make sure that you've got the right blend of sort of experiences coming in, so that the technical side of the job is being covered, so that they're learning what they need to from the right people. The work is getting done to the right quality, but actually it's an environment in which they can get things wrong, and that those external people coming in understand that that's the environment that's there, and that their job is to make sure that ultimately people are learning from that, and that the right thing is getting done in the long term. I guess, part of some of that journey was about being very, very open, like it being a very, very collaborative thing. We've talked about people are working from home more, so it's about having very good communication in place, and being very open with a whole load of stakeholders about this is kind of how we're working and what we're doing, and it is a bit different, but actually there's a lot of benefits to this, and actually you get to come on the journey as well. You're seeing the work happen as it's happening, as opposed to being wheeled in at the end to just sign it off or tell us you're unhappy. So there's a lot of benefits in that. It's again, a lot of it just comes back to expectation setting, stakeholder management, and then just trying to create that kind of environment in which ultimately good people can try and do good work.
Yeah, and what would you say in terms of kind of interest wise? Were you finding that there was quite a lot of interest from sort of early careers, people to get into sort of systems engineering?
I think it's because it's continuing to sort of grow, like we talked about earlier, with like the demand to do it. There's a lot more people leaving university. There's a lot more people looking for work, and it's a kind of a field that it's a mindset thing, not necessarily something that people come with a formal qualification. So actually, there's a lot of people that don't really understand what it is, and have never heard of it. But you can sort of appeal to that. But it's working on really interesting problems, and actually, a lot of it's a problem solving discipline. Not a specific technical deep SME experience we're looking for, and that kind of it makes it a really good area, I guess, for people to come in and go, okay, yeah, I'll give that a go.
Yeah, and obviously it's a lot of people will start off in systems engineering and then they'll move into sort of more software or
Exactly.
that sort of thing. Yeah. Like you said, it's a good sort of starting platform to come in. Whereas actually going into a software engineering role, they kind of want to see degrees in something related to it, or they want experience related to it. Whereas systems, you haven't necessarily got that same thing. Like you said, it's quite an open book in terms of the sort of people that would get into it. And it's a good starting platform. So that's really interesting. And your role, obviously, being with the business, getting your foot in. Obviously, know Dan and Nathan from your previous work together. What's your kind of, have you got a plan, or do you not know what your plan is?
So Espanaro is kind of it's still a company that's quite small. Like it's been going for a number of years. Dan and Nathan, both people that I worked with in the times at BAE. I guess they've done a lot of the work they started doing was in product development, but as part of that, we sort of said they've been doing this, having this need to do systems engineering as part of that, and now they've started to do actually just systems engineering work as part of that. I've joined to try and help, I guess, grow part of this side of the business, and we've got access to some engineers that have got some pretty good experiences in doing this. Our sort of short to medium term plan is, I guess, to just continue to grow this side of the business and work with clients. And I guess personally, it's trying to work with other parts of the industry I've not necessarily worked with before, because I've done a lot of time in one part of the industry, and just see try and I think sort of gain that exposure to the wider bit and see how we can take some of those learnings from sort of ultimately one organization and apply them in other parts of the industry.
Yeah, so very different sort of set of challenges for you, from working in a massive organization.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I kind of have taken this move from a company with thousands and thousands of employees to a company that's I think I'm sort of the 14th person through the door, and it's a very different environment, and there's lots of positives to that. It can be a little disorientating. Interestingly, Espanaro does a lot of work in sort of the military transition schemes. So there's a load of guys that have come out of the military straight into Espanaro as their first job, and it's interesting, completely sort of in some ways different sort of field of work, but actually the same sort of challenge of moving out of something very sort of specific in the way that it's set up and the kind of environment you're in to a completely different one. So actually, talking to some of those guys, it's been interesting to see it's sort of the same experience but from a different angle.
Yeah, almost like they're the users. They are the people on the other end of the stick, really.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so I think it's safe to say it's probably going to be pretty exciting sort of next 6 to 12 months.
Well, we hope so.
Yeah, and hopefully you're going to be nice and busy, and obviously I guess from as a sort of closing thing really, in terms of as and when you are looking to grow your team, what would you how would you sort of sell it as as an attractive prospect for people to join?
Yeah, so I mean, we sort of asked earlier, why did I join Espanaro? I guess part of it for me was, I know Dan and I know Nathan, and people always say try and find people you enjoy working with, and I enjoyed working with them, and that was part of the attraction for me, was to go and start working with people again that I enjoy working with. But I guess we kind of, what I've always enjoyed about working with them is this similar sort of thing, that it does sound very corny, but it's just do what you say you're going to do, and not too worried about necessarily the all the wider bits around you. It's the what, we've always been very focused on the what's the thing we were asked to do, and let's just do that and ensure that someone's happy that that's what we're doing, what they asked us to do. And I guess we look, we try and create that kind of environment in everything we're doing, while trying to enjoy while trying to enjoy doing it.
Yeah, that's the key, where you can find that middle ground where you're doing a good job, and especially customers that you work for. Obviously, it's very important that you do a good job and you service them, but you want to enjoy what you do as well, right? And you want to enjoy the people you work with.
It is only work at the end of the day. Like, you've got to, it's easy to get wrapped up in a job, but it's you've got to find some enjoyment in it.
Yeah, exactly that. But yeah, no, I really appreciate your time, and for coming in and having a chat. It was really interesting. As someone that doesn't personally know a whole heap about system stuff, it's quite interesting for me to hear that. And hopefully things will continue to go really well with yourself and Espanaro. I think it's definitely going to be one to watch for the next sort of half of the year, really.
Yeah,
So,
thanks.
yeah,
thanks for having me in.